Which statement is true regarding bearings used in high-powered reciprocating aircraft engine? There is less rolling friction when ball bearings are used than when roller bearings are employed. Which of the following will decrease volumetric efficiency in a reciprocating engine? Improper valve timing, sharp bends in the induction system, and high carburetor air temperature. Which of the following is a characteristic of a thrust bearing used in most radial engines? Deep groove ball. Which bearing is least likely to be a roller or ball bearing? Master rod bearing radial engine. The primary concern in establishing the firing order for an opposed engine is to provide for balance and eliminate vibration to the greatest extent possible. Grinding the valves of a reciprocating engine to a feather edge is likely to result in pre-ignition and burn valves. Which statement is correct regarding engine crankshafts? Movable counterweights serve to reduce the torsional vibrations in an aircraft reciprocating engine. Which type of bearings are generally used for connecting rods and camshafts? Plain. Turboprop engines measure power produced with a torque meter, and it's proportional to what type of piston engine horsepower? Brake horsepower. Campground pistons are installed in some aircraft engines to provide a better fit at operating temperatures. Some aircraft engine manufacturers equip their product with choked or taper ground cylinders in order to provide a straight cylinder bore at operating temperatures. What tool is generally used to measure the crankshaft rotation in degrees? Timing disc. Some cylinder barrels are hardened by nitriding. On which part of the cylinder walls of a normally opposing engine will the greatest amount of wear occur? Near the top of the cylinder. During overhaul, reciprocating engine exhaust valves are checked for stretch with a contour or radius gauge. What is the purpose of the safety circuit installed on some valve stems? To prevent valves from falling into the combustion chamber. Valve overlap is defined as the number of degrees of crankshaft travel during which both valves are off their seat. Which of the following are factors in establishing the maximum compression ratio limitations of an aircraft engine? Detonation characteristics of the fuel, design limitations of the engine, and the degree of supercharging. The valve clearance of an engine using hydraulic lifters, when the lifters are completely flat or empty, should not exceed a specific amount above zero. The primary purpose in setting proper valve timing and overlap is to obtain the best volumetric efficiency and lower cylinder operating temperatures. Full floating piston pins are those which allow motion between the pin and both the piston and the small end of the connecting rod. Why does the smoothness of operation of an engine increase with a greater number of cylinders? The power impulses are spaced closer together.
Both statements are true.
Cast iron piston rings may be used in chrome-plated cylinders. Chrome-plated rings may be used in plain steel cylinders. How is proper end gap clearance on new piston rings assured during the overhaul of an engine? By placing the rings in the cylinder and measuring the end gap with a feeler gauge. What will be the likely result if the piston ring gaps happen to be aligned when performing a differential pressure compression check on a cylinder? Worn or defective ring indication. The floating control thermostat used on some reciprocating engine installations helps regulate oil temperature by controlling airflow through the oil cooler. Cylinder compression check is required when performing an annual or 100-hour inspection on a reciprocating engine. Oil screen check must be done during a 100-hour inspection. What are two inspections requirements for a starter generator at a 100-hour inspection? Commutator wear and pitting. Oil leakage. After spark plugs from an opposed engine have been serviced, in what position should they be reinstalled? Next in the firing order, to the one from which they were removed, and swapped bottom to top. As the pressure is applied, during a reciprocating engine compression check, using a differential pressure tester, what would a moment of the propeller, in the direction of engine rotation, indicate? The piston was positioned past top dead center. A characteristic of dynafocal engine mounts, as applied to aircraft reciprocating engine, is that the shock mounts point toward the engine's center of gravity. What special procedure must be followed when adjusting the valves of an engine equipped with a floating cam rings? Eliminate cam bearing clearance when making valve adjustments. What does valve overlap promote? Better scavenging and cooling characteristics. Engine crankshaft round out is usually checked during engine overhaul and after a prop strike or sudden engine stoppage. An engine misses in both the right and left position of the magneto switch. The quickest method for locating the trouble is to check for one or more cold cylinders. A hissing sound from the exhaust stacks when the propeller is being pulled through manually indicates exhaust valve blow-by. If an engine operates with a low oil pressure and a high oil temperature, the problem may be caused by a leaking oil dilution valve. The horsepower developed in the cylinders of a reciprocating engine is known as the indicated horsepower. The theoretical horsepower of a reciprocating engine develops is indicated horsepower. Standard aircraft cylinder oversize usually range from 1/100th of an inch to 1/30th of an inch. Oversize on automobile engine cylinder may range up to 1/100th of an inch. This is because aircraft engine cylinders have relatively thin walls and may be nitrided. If the ignition switch is moved from both to either the left or right during an engine ground check, normal operation is usually indicated by a slight drop in torque meter pressure indication. During ground check, an engine is found to be rough running, the magneto drop is normal, and the manifold pressure is higher than normal for any given RPM. The trouble may be caused by a dead cylinder. What is the best indication of worn valve guides? High oil consumption. What is an advantage of using metallic sodium-filled exhaust valves in aircraft reciprocating engines? Reduce valve operating temperatures. Valve clearance changes on opposed-type engines using hydraulic lifters are accomplished by push rod replacement. What is likely to occur if a reciprocating engine is operated at high power settings before it is properly warmed up? Oil starvation of bearings and other parts. An increase in manifold pressure with a constant RPM will cause the bearing load in an engine to increase. Direct mechanical, push-pull carburetor heat control linkages should normally be adjusted so that the stop located on the diverter valve will be contracted before the stop at the control lever is reached in both hot and cold positions. Which of the following would most likely cause a reciprocating engine to backfire through the induction system at low RPM operations? Lean mixture. How may it be determined that a reciprocating engine with a dry sump is pre-oiled significantly? Oil will flow from the engine return line or indicator port. What is the basic operational sequence for reducing the power output of an engine equipped with a constant speed propeller? Reduce the manifold pressure than the RPM. Which of these conditions will cause an engine to have an increased tendency to detonate? High manifold pressure, high intake air temperature, engine overheated. To reduce the power output of an engine equipped with a constant speed propeller and operating near maximum BMEP, the manifold pressure is reduced with the throttle control before the RPM is reduced with the propeller control. What could cause excessive pressure buildup in the crankcase of a reciprocating engine? Plugged crankcase breather. To what altitude will a turbocharged engine maintain sea level pressure? Critical altitude. After firing, in an aircraft engine may be caused by overly rich fuel mixture, faulty spark plugs, defective fuel injector nozzles, incorrect valve clearance. The rotor blades of the axial flow compressors are usually made of stainless steel. One function of the nozzle diaphragm in a turbine engine is to direct the flow of gases to strike the turbine blades at the desired angle. What is the profile of a turbine engine compressor blade? A reduced blade tip thickness. The fan rotational speed of a dual axial compressor forward fan engine is the same as the low pressure compressor. The blending of blades and vanes in a turbine engine should be performed parallel to the length of the blades, using smooth contours to minimize stress points. Turbine nozzle diaphragms, located on the upstream side of each turbine wheel, are used in the gas turbine engine to increase the viscosity of the heated gas flowing past this point. An exhaust cone placed after the turbine in a jet engine will cause the pressure in the first part of the exhaust duct to increase and the viscosity to decrease. What is the function of the stator vane assembly at the discharge end of a typical axial flow compressor? To straighten airflow to eliminate turbulence. When starting a turbine engine, a hot start is indicated if the exhaust gas temperature exceeds specified limits. Layout die may be used to mark turbine engine components exposed to high temperatures. Stators act as a diffuser in a turbine engine and convert viscosity to pressure. The components of a centrifugal compressor section consist of the impeller, diffuser, and manifold. If during inspection at engine overhaul, ball or roller bearings are found to have magnesium, but otherwise have no defects, they must be degaussed before use. Which statements are true regarding aircraft engine propulsion?
1 and 2 are true, 3 is not.
An engine-driven propeller imparts a relatively small amount of acceleration to a large mass of air. Turbojet and turbofan engines impart a relatively large amount of acceleration to a smaller mass of air. 3 types of turbine blades are impulse, reaction, and impulse reaction. Main bearing oil seals, used with turbine engines, are usually labyrinth or carbon rubbing. What is the purpose of the diffuser section in a turbine engine? To increase pressure and reduce velocity. Where do stress rupture cracks usually appear on turbine blades? Across the leading or trailing edge, at a right angle to the edge length. When the leading edge of a first-stage turbine blade is found to have stress rupture cracks, which of the following should be suspected? Over temperature condition. Which of the following is the ultimate limiting factor of turbine engine operation? Turbine inlet temperature. Reduced blade vibration and improved airflow characteristics in gas turbines are brought about by shrouded turbine rotor blades. Which turbine engine compressor offers the greatest advantage of both starting flexibility and improved high-altitude performance? Split spool, axial flow. An advantage of the centrifugal flow compressor is its high pressure rise per stage. The highest heat to metal contact in a jet engine is the turbine inlet guide vanes. In an axial flow compressor, one purpose of the stator vanes, at the discharge end of the compressor, is to straighten the airflow and eliminate turbulence. A purpose of the shrouds on the turbine blades of an axial flow engine is to reduce vibration. A weak fuel-to-air mixture, along with normal airflow through a turbine engine, may result in a lean die-out. Turbine engine after flame is caused by excess fuel in the combustion section, turbine, or exhaust nozzle. Engine oil is the working fluid that provides pressure to the variable inlet guide vane actuators used on some turbine engine compressors. In a turbine engine with a dual spool compressor, the low-speed compressor seeks its own best operating speed. Generally, when starting a turbine engine, the starter should be disengaged after the engine has reached self-accelerating speed. The purpose of a bleed valve, located in the beginning stages of the compressor, in an aircraft gas turbine engine is to vent some of the air overboard to prevent a compressor stall. What is the major function of the turbine assembly in a turbojet engine? Supplies the power to turn the compressor. Stator blades in at the compressor section of an axial flow turbine engine decrease the air velocity and prevent swirling. What type of turbine blade is most commonly used in aircraft jet engines? Impulse reaction. What is the primary factor which controls the pressure ratio of an actual flow compressor? Number of stages in compressor.
Both statements are true.
In a turbine engine axial flow compressor, each consecutive pair of rotor and stator blades constitutes a pressure stage. In a turbine engine axial flow compressor, the number of rows of stages is determined by the amount of air and total pressure rise required. The air passing through the combustion chamber of a turbine engine is used to support combustion and to cool the engine. The procedure for removing the accumulation of dirt deposits on compressor blades is called field cleaning. What may be used to accomplish internal inspection of an assembled turbine engine? Borescope.